And I think it would be nice to have a little bit more regulation of, I guess, parents or even friends posting your pictures, because how, even if you don't have social media, employers and even schools or other opportunities can still find you on the internet. And even if you don't post pictures of yourself, how you are seen on the internet, or how your friends are seen on the internet, still will impact you and your image. So yeah.
So mahalo kule. All right. So a follow-up question, and I think some of you have already kind of touch on this already, but are you comfortable with your data being collected by large companies? Go ahead, Mima.
So, like going back to the Social Dilemma film, they stated that whatever data they collect from you personally, they build models that predict actions based off of it. And so they use voodoo dolls as an example because they're kind of controlling you in a way, and you never know. And so basically, they create models of like your interests so that they could attract you more onto like your social media apps. And so these companies have three goals. The first goal is called engagement role, is where they try to get you to engage more so that they can collect more data. The second goal is, I don't remember the name, but it was similar to invitation goal, which was basically getting your friends to come and attract your friends with you. And then the third goal was advertising goal, which was them, advertising your interest to, bring you in to your social media more often. And so in the film, they used two guys, an example of the companies trying to attract you behind your screen. And so basically, there was this boy, and he was off his phone for like just a couple minutes. And so the two guys who represented the companies, they one of the things they said was, he's on a break now. We should make a live, or we should make an auction, or do something to get him on his phone. And so the companies will do whatever they can to try to get you more interacted with your social media, because the more you're interacted, the more money the companies have, and it builds off, and it keeps on going and going. So that's why social media is not all dystopian, it's just confusing us in a way.
Mahalo, Mima. I'm gonna go with Chloe. I know a lot of you have your hands up. Oh, just gonna go. Chloe, can you touch on that as well?
I think it for me personally, it depends on like the company that's collecting my data and the type of data that they're collecting, and also why I'm using the company's app. Because like if it's for YouTube, people use YouTube for like a lot of different reasons. Sometimes they're just using it for education, or because they need to learn something, or for entertainment. And like if YouTube is collecting your data and you want to use YouTube for entertainment, then it helps recommend you things that you would like to see. Um, so in that case, it feels like it's okay. And then for like ads and stuff, I think it's kind of annoying because like I just don't like ads. But and then for like there's cases where it does get really unsettling, like with Facebook, where they were like selling users' data to other companies. Um, so like your data was worth less than it actually is worth, and your information was traveling through all of these different companies. I think that is kind of scary because I didn't give permission to these other companies to have my data, just this one place. So it all depends, I think, for me.
Mahalo. I like that you looked at it from both perspectives. So mahalo for that. All right. So Noilani.
Um, I think the documentary had an example, and it was like in we are the products, or like, well, not the products. What's the word? It's nothing is necessary. It's not necessarily for free because they get money off of how long we are using social media. And although I don't personally have social media, like any type of social media really, um, the idea that um, it's not, people think like, oh, it's just social media, it's free, it's blah 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 blah. Like, sure, they're like connect using our data, but like it's only to show us things that we're interested in, and it's not always necessarily good. And I find the idea that they're constantly watching, that everything you do is constantly being watched, a little terrifying, because um, there's like personal information you don't really want everyone to see, and just things like that. So
Mahalo Noi. Sophia, go ahead.
Thank you. I love what Chloe said about big companies. When you think about it, those companies have a wall or like a barrier of all this history of good results and supporters that we often don't realize what's going on behind the scenes, or what if it is bad. A little off topic, but this makes me think about like a few months ago, when lawmakers realized that big tech, or just popular tech sites, have a lot of power. Um, so, for example, Facebook, Apple, uh, Google, they have so much power that they're taking the opportunity from other apps and other sites, uh, which makes me kind of scared, because we're just going with the trend. We don't know what could be better for us, and big tech companies like that, and the case that's going against the power, it's what's preventing us.
Oh, Chloe, did you have something to add?
Yeah. What
Okay.
Sophia said about like how scary it is that we're just like depending so much on these really big tech companies like Apple and Google. Like just the other day, Google was down for a little bit, and like everybody was freaking out because all of our work is on Google, our contact information, our billing information, like our everything is basically on Google for a lot of people. So the fact that like some people's entire lives depend on it is kind of unsettling. Yeah.
Definitely agree. A lot of the work that I do is on Google as well, and Google Drive is something like all of you, even for school, right? We all depend on Google Drive. All of our assignments, everything that you need is all on Google Drive. So always save a copy just in case. But I'm just gonna throw a question in here, because I heard this while you folks were talking. A lot of you kept saying you don't have social media. Thank goodness. Good for you. Blessings. Because it's hard to get away from. But I just wanted to ask, for those of you who don't have social media and you're watching The Social Dilemma, and we're having this conversation, and you folks are basing these conversations off of what you folks see, and having friends that have social media, can you guys tell Auntie, or maybe let me know, like, why do you choose not to have social media? Why do you, and maybe it's your parents choose for you, but what is that? How is it for you, just being away from social media? Noi?
I know personally, like I know for a while I was interested in getting social media, just because of the fact that a lot of things that I am connected to, like I put my time into, like dance and things, like and different like clubs in school, they all rely on social media to like contact us and talk about different things. So it's not necessarily all bad. But then I look at like the cons of having it, and it makes me like it kind of takes me like back, and like think about like, is this good for me to have, or would it be bad? Like and I know like I one of the main reasons I never got it before was because it was my parents' decision, like for me not to have social media. um but then I also never really felt the need to have it, just because like mm, it never really was like a huge part of my life until recently, where I felt like it might be beneficial to get it, but at the same time, after watching The Social Dilemma, it I don't really necessarily need it anymore. But being surrounded by people who do have social media, knowing I'm like one of the only people like within my friends that doesn't have it, it it makes me feel disconnected from them sometimes, occasionally when they'll talk about different things that happen. But at the same time, they tell me things like, we're glad you don't have it because then you're not dragged into this whole of like social media. Because I guess entering the world of having like Instagram or Snapchat and things like that, it's very different from like what I know and what I'm aware of, because I would have access to a lot of different things that wouldn't necessarily be good towards, I guess, my mental health or like the knowledge I have now. And so I think although there are like pros to having it, the cons kind of weigh it out more in my mind. And I think for now, at least, I might stick to just staying off of social media just because of the things I've been told. And like, even if I feel like I need social media, I still have friends that have it. So if anything, like, and I doubt some of them will get rid of it anytime soon. So I'll probably, if something pops up and I need to ask them about like something that's on social media, I can always ask like one of my parents or one of my friends about it. So I don't really feel like it's something I need to get at the moment.
Mahalo noi. And Kina, did you want to add something?
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I liked what Noelani said about like you can always ask your friends or like what it. And before I always wanted to have a phone because everybody in my class had a phone, like ever since third grade. And now from watching Social Dilemma again, I don't really feel the need to have it, like Noelani said, and I don't really need it anyway. And I can just ask mama if like something else comes up on Facebook or if like she gets a text from the Kamaliʻi talk story.
Awesome. Mahalo. Oh, yep, Kule, go ahead.
This doesn't really, I guess, answer the question, but it's kind of a comment. You guys aren't really missing out on much. I only have Instagram, but I usually just use it as a messaging app because I don't have all of my friends like phone numbers, or not everyone has a phone, so they'll like DM me instead. You're really not missing out on much. There's not that much on there that you really need to be like. It's like they're either trying to advertise shopping towards you or make you hungry. There's so much food on there, but yeah, you're really not missing out on much. If you don't want to get it or if you don't need it, don't get it.
Okay, mahalo. And Vincent, go ahead, Vincent.
For me, I think personally, I probably out of all everyone, I probably use social media the most. Cause like so for me, since I do kendama, that's like Instagram's like the biggest place for you to spread your kendama. Cause like that's how you connect with other people. And I started using Twitter a lot more to read more articles. Cause that's like Twitter's like the probably the best place to read more about articles.
Okay, so Vincent, Vincent, so you truly use it for on the positive level. It's not necessarily used for like social. It's actually for you to stay connected. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, good discipline. Good job, Vincent. Some of us adults are still working on that type of discipline. Okay, go ahead, Sophia.
Yeah, I agree with Vincent. Like, I have YouTube, and it's like amazing how like my entire recommended is filled with like all this sewing stuff. And for my mom, it's like all this gardening stuff. And it's like just going back to the history, after seeing all that, I was like, ooh, that's kind of scary, like, huh, I don't. And also a big part of why I used to have kind of a lot of social media. And then by myself and kind of with my parents, I made the decision that it wasn't really worth it. A lot of my day was making videos or, you know, having fun with my friends, and I could spend more time doing beneficial things for myself. I was also disgusted when I went over to my friend's house like during Halloween, and we were all safe and masked up and everything. But I went over and I was only allowed to be there for like 30 minutes, and they were all watching TikTok. And I was like, excuse me, like I'm right here. Um, and yeah, and then I was like, yeah, it's not really worth it. But yeah.
And I'm glad you talked about that. That was going to be my next question. Like, for those of you who have, you know, who don't have social media, or and who do have social media, like, how do you feel? Like, if you do have the means to be connected to social media and you're hanging out with friends who don't have that connection to social media, like, how do you feel when, like Sophia, and they, like what she just said, like, how do you feel around your friends when they don't have any social media and you folks only have so much time, and you end up finding that a whole hour has gone by and you were on your phone the whole time? Like, how do you navigate that? Vincent?
So like for the longest time, I avoided getting TikTok for the sole reason that I have like addictive personality. Like where if I get into something, I get into it. So I
Vincent, I
tried to
don't know.
limit.
Can you get closer to the mic? Sorry, I don't think we can hear you.
So
Sorry. There you go.
is,
Try.
is this better?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So for the longest time, I didn't get TikTok for the sole reason that like I have an addictive personality, or like, if I get into something, I'll just go right into it. And so the reason why I got TikTok is just to stay in the loop. That's like the whole purpose, because like our culture right now is just kind of surrounded with TikToks.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then go ahead, Mima.
I think for me, one of the biggest stages where I was on social media the most was the start of quarantine. Because before quarantine, we already had a set schedule where for some of us, we have to go to school, then go straight to our after school activity, then go home, eat dinner, and so on. But once quarantine started, you really didn't know what to do exactly. You didn't really have a straight schedule. And so for me, uh, that was me exactly. I didn't know what to do. So, like any other teenage girl, I went on YouTube and I watched so many videos, and I checked how many hours I was on my computer for, and it was like 4 hours a day. And so, uh, I feel like every single day it kind of got worse. After like I was on there and checked how long I was on there, I kind of felt guilty. Like I could have spent those 4 hours hanging with my family. I could have walked my dog, do a fun activity, learn about something that I'm curious about. And so now that I do have a schedule, um, I have things to do, but even if I'm on my computer just watching something randomly for 30 minutes, I still feel guilty because I could have used that time to do something, more productive. And so if I'm ever having days like bad days of going on social media, I try to find a day during the week where I can just hang out with my family. There's nothing planned. I can just talk with them and have a conversation. And yeah.
Go ahead, Kule.
Um, I had like a firsthand experience of the whole like what Sophia was talking about. I remember my best friend got her first phone in fifth grade. So for my birthday party, I invited my friends over, and I was a little upset. She spent like the whole time on her phone. Obviously, she's changed, but it it's really like a personal choice, something you have to get over yourself to, like, I guess move past that. I also experienced a little bit of that this summer during quarantine. I was talking to Ming one time and she's like, "Oh, I've been spending a lot of time on my phone." It was like along the lines of this. And she's like, "I've been spending like 4 hours a day on my phone." I was like, uh, my screen time is like 10 hours plus. which was like a lot. But my friends also spend more time than me, but I was like, that was a lot. So I finally picked myself up like halfway through the summer and I started going outside, and that really helped me get away from it. And it really made me realize how much like time I spent on my, I guess, all my devices, and how much time I wasted, because 8 hours on my phone felt like nothing compared to, like, I would go on a bike ride for like 2 hours and I would feel like my whole day would had gone by, and like the time, it really felt, I guess, like the time felt different. But yeah, um I feel like if you are stuck on your phone, you really have to like find something to schedule yourself away from it, and find, like, I guess, a personal balance. After watching the Social Dilemma documentary, they have, I guess, iPhone has restrictions you can set for yourself. So I've been trying to limit my entertainment apps and my just like phone use overall, which has been good. But it's still a work in progress, but I'm working on it and I'm getting there.
Good job, Kule. My kai. I love that you recognize that. I didn't know that there was a screen time option on the phone, and I too learned about that during quarantine, and it was scary, just like you said. And so, for you folks to be this young and to already be making those choices, my kai, I commend you. Very good. Go ahead, Sophia. Your turn.
Oh, well, just to kind of summarize everything, it's almost part of our nature now. Like we were kind of born in a generation where having a phone at a young age wasn't that unnormal, Um, and all of our friends, the first idea in their head is, oh, let's go make a cool video or something like that. And it would be so different if like we were older, like a lot older. Um, and we'd have different thoughts and everything like that. So yeah.
Mahalo. Mahalo, guys. See? Awesome. Um, so now we're gonna kind of move on, and we're gonna go away from social media privacy and talking about that, and just kind of expanding the discussion. The next question I have for you is, what is the difference between bullying someone in person compared to cyberbullying a user through social media? What do you folks think is the difference? Or go ahead, Vincent.
Like I think cyberbullying is basically it's just like the easier way to it's just an easy way out. Because like if you're going to bully someone in person, you have to literally go up to them and like talk smack right in front of them. But if you're like cyberbullying, you just have to like type some stuff up and then send it to them. Like there's no repercussions for cyberbullying.
So you're saying like maybe it almost seems like it's easier.
Yeah.
Ah, I see. May kai, mahalo. All right, Noilani.
Um, Going along with what Vincent said, I know like being bullied in person is like a different experience from being bullied online, because I guess when it's a lot easier to attack someone when it's online, especially. Um, and I know like through social media and stuff, like you don't always know everyone that's like on social media. So if you just see something that you disagree with on like some type of platform, you can always just leave a negative comment, and that can also just like um really like ruin someone's self-esteem, I guess. And like being the difference between being bullied in person is like being bullied in person, these are people like and see every day. Whereas on social media, I know I have a friend that was bullied on social media, and she kind of just said that it was like a lot easier to ignore than it would have been if it were in person, because she knew like on social media these are people that she doesn't know, and although it was still hard for her, um, like being bullied in person would have made things a lot worse, because she would see these people like face to face, and I guess she felt she wouldn't have as much confidence when facing them in person. Whereas on social media, like even she felt like as like the defendants, like she still felt more confident, I suppose, because she knew that those people didn't know her. And like even though their words hurt, she was able to get over them in a faster way. Whereas if it's in person, I guess it's just a lot more difficult to forget and forgive.
I agree. Mahalo. All right, we're gonna go to Kina.
I like what Noelani said about like it might be easier to get over somebody if they're just like messaging you on social media. And one thing, I mean, I'm just saying this, but I think the difference between being cyberbullied and bullied in person is bullied in person, like Noelani said, you can see the person and you can see how they react, versus on social media, it's anonymous and you don't really even know. So it's, if that was in-person bullying, it's like somebody walking across the street while you're taking a walk and then they're like, or I don't know, like they tell you something, I don't know. But it's anonymous on social media, and in person, it has a bigger effect on you.
Mahalo. Chloe?
Kind of going off of what Kina said, like when you bully someone in person, you can't see how they react. I mean, you can see how they react. And so when it's online, you can't see that emotion. So it kind of takes the emotion out of it. And like Vincent said, it makes it easier to do it because you don't see that you're actually hurting somebody. Like your empathy doesn't come out the same way. And I think also with bullying online, like you can be more persistent with it than in person because you have social media 24/7, but you don't see one person the whole day. So that provides like, yeah, for like kind of worse long periods of time of bullying.
Mahalo. Kule, did you have something to add?
Just to summarize, I think we all kind of agreed that there's like an emotional disconnect regarding like bullying online because it seems easier because you can do it anonymously and maybe you might not see how the other person reacts, so there's like that emotional disconnection there, and it might seem like you won't feel as bad maybe hurting them with your words, whatever. But yeah.
Malo, no, I cyberbullying. So basically, just to kind of bring this all together, cyberbullying, you folks are saying, is it's almost easier. Yeah, it's not, and it takes the emotions away from it, like you folks are saying. But I just want to add from like the adult side. I know aunties, but I want to just be clear. Like bullying isn't okay. Period. Right? We all know this. Yeah. Okay. I know you guys know, but we want to put it out, right? We're putting this out to the world. We want to ho'olono. We want to get it out there. That regardless, bullying is not okay, and I love that you folks are able to be open about that and to understand the differences, but to also recognize that it's not okay, no matter what level that we're at. And going off of that, have any of you folks ever had a friend, or maybe even just for you, have experienced cyberbullying through social media, and if so, how did it impact them? Go ahead, Sophia.
So for me, a lot of my friends and I just attract a bunch of confident people. So when they're on social media, they take a lot of pride in everything they post and everything they say. So I remember one day when it's like our tight friend group. One of them made like a hate account, or like just funny, it wasn't funny. And they started posting things, and instead of, taking action, maybe, reporting them, I don't know what you can do. They kind of like just made a joke out of it. and they didn't want to, make themselves look lower or less tough and full. So they just kind of went with it and said, like, okay, yeah, I get that. And it really just wasn't, nice, or it should have been taken into consideration.
Mahalo, Sophia. Go ahead, Noelani, you have a story to share.
To be bullied, like, I know personally, I mean, I've been bullied, but it was in person. But I know people that have been bullied online, and it's just a different experience. Like, being bullied anonymously, um it's painful, like, mentally and like emotionally. But I feel like the difference between being bullied anonymously, like in person, which was what happened to me, and then being bullied anonymously online, is the fact that I guess because people have because on being online, like, going back to what we said before, it's easier to have the confidence to say something to someone because they don't know you, or maybe you feel like there's this shield that's going to protect you from being found out. um Whereas being in person, you have to have the confidence to go and, like, hurt someone personally, like, not necessarily attack them, but kind of attack them. um and like, for both sides, it's emotionally draining and, like, mentally, and even physically, like, exhausting to deal with. And it really takes a blow. You take a blow to your self-esteem because someone has the nerve, the audacity to just tell you something about yourself, or something that they don't agree with, but in an extremely negative way, rather than it just being um rather than putting it nicely. um like, and although they have, like, their similarities, they're very different because of the fact that it's online, and one's online and one is in person. And whether it's anonymously or, like, who it is, it's people have this idea that when it's on social media, you feel more protected, I guess, or you feel like there isn't as much that will, there won't be as much backlash against you because everything is just online, and you have this idea, like, this fantasy that you can hide things that happen online, whereas your digital footprint is always recorded, and everything you do and say, like, someone will, like, know. And I think that's something people have learned throughout the years. But there's just there they have similarities, but they also have very strong differences. And the effects they have on, like, people's self-esteem, like, still can be, like, the same, but at the exact same time, I know if I were bullied on social media rather than what happened to me, like, whether it was rather than it had been in person, like, I know personally I was, like, I still am, like, a generally confident person, and I'm confident with who I am and, like, what I put out there and the thoughts I have on, like, different subjects and my beliefs. And like, I know if it happened on social media, it wouldn't have hurt me as much as it did because of the fact that these are just people hiding because they don't have the nerve to come and say it to my face. So, and I know, like, that the experience as a whole is different for me than it would be for other people. And I know, like, some people who have who are fragile with their emotions, it might hurt them more than it would, because being bullied in general, it sucks. Like, it's not something that you would ever wish upon anybody, or you shouldn't ever want someone to be hurt in that kind of way. Um, because I feel like everyone has the right to be confident in themselves, but it they although they are, like, different in a lot of aspects, they are the same, and they affect people emotionally and mentally and physically. And um they just it's just not something that should be done, and it has, like, large impacts on people. So.
Mahalo noi. Kina, did you want to add?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Again, I don't have a phone, and me and my friends, we all don't have phones. But I feel like if one of my friends were to be cyberbullied, I know them very well, so I think like when they come to school, they wouldn't like greet everybody usually like joyfully. Like in the morning, you walk into school, good morning, everybody. And I feel like they just walk into school not feeling the same way as they were yesterday.
Awesome. Mahalo. Thank you for sharing your stories about bullying, and I definitely agree with all of you. And especially with Noilani, it's not okay, and we wouldn't wish that upon anybody. And thank you for recognizing that. I do have a adding question, and I'm pretty sure you guys are gonna be like, let's make note. Auntie Lei cannot be a moderator. I know Kalamai. I give you guys extra questions. Um, Talking about bullying, and so we have the conversation about the differences between the two, and having maybe being victim to cyberbullying or maybe not have, and just seeing your friends. um for you, or for any of you, when you do see this happening, what is your advice? I mean, I heard, you guys are saying like they're just hiding, but what is truly your advice if you know of somebody who is being victimized by cyberbullying, or something along those, or just bullying? What is your advice to them? What would you folks recommend that they do to help stop cyberbullying, or how would you stop it? Sophia?
Okay, so I don't know if it's just me, but the first thing that comes to my mind is taste of your own medicine, bully back, whatever. But that's not the way to go. Um, when you're I remember in health, we were learning about dealing with your emotions and everything like that, and just treat them with kindness. If you can teach them a lesson, that's always good. But oftentimes when you're with your friends, they're like, oh, you're crazy or something. I'm not going to take that seriously. You can try to find something they would understand or connect to. But yeah.
Mahalo. Chloe?
Well, so I guess now there's a lot of ways to report people that say things online. There's also like monitors and stuff that watch what is said online. So take advantage of like reporting people, and also there's like, I mean, cancel culture, which isn't very much of a good thing, but it keeps people from saying dumb things sometimes. So just think about the repercussions of what you say. And if somebody does say something, make sure that they know that they're saying it, because, yeah, they might not even realize that they're really, really hurting somebody.
Mahalo. Vincent?
If it's like someone who's like, if I'm getting cyberbullied and it's someone like I actually like have respect and I like talking to them, I would like try to communicate how and say like this is like not cool. But it's like someone I'm not really familiar with or like I don't really like, I would just like mute them and block them. Because like it's not worth my time to try to tell you why you're being this. Because you have no impact on me on a personal level.
Good job, Vincent. Power of the mute button. My kai. Go ahead, Mima.
Relating to Vincent, well, in health class right now, we're learning about pausing because, like, we're learning about risky decision making, and so you should always pause before, you know, doing something you know that it's wrong. And so, forever who's being the cyberbully, you should always pause because, like, going back to Vincent, it's like you're not really impacting them in a way, because yet again, it's easier to, type a little comment and send it to them, but that's like, it's not going to hurt them as much as being bullied, so why even bother wasting your time to do it? And so for the person who sees the cyberbullying happen, and I see the person comment, "Oh, I hate you, blah blah blah," I would say, "Did you really just say that? Like, come on, like really?" And for like a freshman to say this, and if it was like an adult, I'll be like, "Come on," like. But again, you're like wasting your time, and it's just not something you should do. Period. But yet just always pause before thinking of doing something, because you're just wasting your, my mom would say, you're just wasting the amount of breathing you're doing. So yeah.
Oya no. Mahalo. Kule.
I agree with what Vincent said. If you know the person in person, like if you actually talk to them and somehow they're bullying you on like social media or cyberbullying you, personally, I would confront them, maybe even in person, because sometimes comments that seem passive aggressive, maybe it's coming from like a place of good. If you guys are friends, and sometimes things can get a little lost in translation over the internet because your tone of voice is missing. For example, like they might not be able to tell it's sarcasm or that you're feeling hurt by it. So personally, I would confront them, and if they're still being a jerk, obviously, like mute them. And if all else fails, you can always take a break from social media. Just take a break, and if you really need, if you feel like you need to come back, you can, but take a break.
Mahalo Noi.
Personally, I know like I'm very defensive over like the people I'm close with and people who I find are like I'm close friends with or I care a lot about. So my first like thoughts are like I would talk to whoever. Like I usually have a tendency to like if something's wrong with one of my friends, if they tell me, it's usually because they want me to do something about it, or like they know like I can do something about it, because like I have a tendency to just say what's on my mind most of the time when it comes to like things like someone I know is being attacked, or and sometimes it's not like anything I say. Sometimes stuff I say sounds like completely foolish, or like out of context it sounds really odd, but when someone I know is being hurt by words that someone I might know is saying, I usually would like go and talk to them, like, or like, I personally, it's not the best approach. So, like, going back to what Vincent said, you have the mute button, you have the block button. But if someone you know is like being hurt and like by actions that like through the internet, that someone that not really someone you're friends with, but someone you know of is saying to your friend, you always have the power to go talk to them yourself and like to go have a word. It doesn't, you just talk to them and see why, because I know for me personally, I've done that a lot, like where my friends have come to me and said that they need help, or like something's happened to them on the internet, and I'll just go talk to whoever said it, and I'll like sometimes I get very frustrated and like have it, probably shouldn't do this, but yell at them, but or teach them a lesson, I guess. But it's also, I feel like if you're telling them off on like online, they don't hear your tone of voice and they don't hear what you're saying sometimes. So sometimes it is better to go talk to them in person, whether like it doesn't really matter what it would be about, but just to get your point across, to make it clear that you're serious about what you're saying. But then again, there's always the block button, just one click away from just telling them to stop.
With everything that you folks are saying, definitely, adults still struggle with this as well. Like, how do you have those difficult conversations and all of that? So, again, I applaud you folks for being able to recognize that. Definitely something that NT would just, if you haven't, if and some of you already know, I love Michelle Obama. And one of the things that she has always said that I love, and it goes with like the pause button and think about it, and using your voice for good, you know what I mean? And she always, and I always have to repeat this to myself too, is always go the high road. Always go high whenever something like this is happening. So just to be able to have a conversation with you folks, you young leaders, and you can recognize that you are already like, this is what Michelle Obama talks about going high. So mahalo. Sorry again, the side question. So moving on with your folks, with our social media, thanks to advanced algorithms on services such as YouTube and Instagram, its suggested content tends to be similar to content you have viewed, and like which may limit or influence the new idea viewers come in contact with. Do you think social media unites or divides individuals with different stances or influence or biases of today's issues? Noelani?
So so the election just happened. And with the election, there was a lot that happened because of different things like social media, and like maybe riots happened and stuff like that. But I feel like this idea that there's a divide, it's like a complete divide between the country during election season. Like you can only like one or the other, and like if you and whoever likes the other side, like they're your enemy. You can't be friends with them. You can't talk to them. You have different opinions from them. So therefore, like they're wrong. Like whoever you feel like you're against. And I feel like social media has a really big, um, like a huge role in dividing people when it comes to things like that. Because like the way I look at it, like I know like I'm just a 15-year-old kid. Like I'm not really into like politics and like stuff like that. Um I usually just focus on myself. But at the same time, when I look at it, I'm like, why can't we just get along? But then I look at like like, why can't we get along, and why can't we just agree on something, or like find the good and bad of both sides? um, but it's very like I feel like as much as it divides people, it like also brings together people like on each different side. Like although they're on different side, people are on different sides. It brings each side together, and like, but then there's a disconnect, and you like both sides don't get the opportunity to listen to each other. And when the opportunity is given, people are arrogant or just feel or feel like they don't want to listen, because they're every day they're fed news that is always agreed with their opinion. Like because of social media, it feeds you stuff that you're already used to and you already know, and that you already know you like. So it's difficult to look at the other side of things. Um, but I mean, I've been just talking about how it like how it divides people, but it does unite people, and it makes I know that like influencers and stuff, they know they have like fans, and they feel like comfortable like talking to people, and I feel as if I mean it does both, like in the end. Just one part I wish it had less of.
Mahalo. Chloe?
So well, with like this bias influence, there's like this thing called confirmation bias or like tunnel vision with your social media. So based off of like what you do, like with the data collection and stuff, based off of what you do, it like what you see will be relating to that. So if you are of either side, you will be recommended content of the side that you agree with. So that makes it harder for people to want to listen to other perspectives because they only want to see what they agree with. And this is kind of, so well, for school, I'm doing a project about this, like about kind of how people group themselves based off of their personal identities, and they only want to associate with people that are like them. And so I think social media really it enhances that a little bit. Like it makes it easier to divide ourselves into these little subcategories. And then, like Noelani said, there's also like this other side where like we can talk to somebody from, well, not that you should just talk to random people from other side of the world, but you can read the perspective of another person that you might have not been able to. So it's just a matter of not just looking for what you agree with, but looking to understand different perspectives as you're going through information.
Mahalo. All right, Vincent.
So I think, the problem, like if we're gonna, for example, like
Vincent, we cannot hear you again.
is this better? No. Wait, is this better? No.
It might be like, and maybe everyone else needs to be muted while he's talking, because I know it does that sometimes, where there is like, if there's other noises coming in.
We can try. Let me try mute.
Is this better? So I think like the main problem is like the political, like if we're going to talk about the political divide, I don't think social media inherently is like amplify. It's not creating that. It's more of a sort of less like amplifying that, because like even before social media was a thing, we were already politically divided because of cultural values and like values we have already. But like I think social media when it comes to politics has a bad and a good, where like if we do some if one side does this, there's always a reaction to the other side. So like, but at the same time, we were able to get more conversations heard between both parties.
Love that. Mahalo, Vincent. Okay, who do we have? Kina?
Going back to what everybody said about politics, like when there's one side and another, my dad and his younger brother actually were like texting on the phone, and they were kind of having a fight because of the different sides. They voted for different people, and they were on it for a while. And even like we were about to get our flu shots, and then my dad was like he just kept typing and typing, and then telling mama like what he's doing, like he's crazy. And yeah.
Mahalo, Kina. Kule?
I was listening to this presentation by a political science major. It was really interesting. She was talking about how they learn about how to like find information, and like for political science, obviously. And so this was around the time of the election, and so she really said you can take what other people are saying online, but really you yourself have to go out and search for information, and you have to look for both sides, because even though reporters may try and be as unbiased as possible, there's still going to be like a little bit of bias in anything that you see. So you really have to try and find the facts for yourself and make sure you're looking at like informative and respectable sources. And I feel like social media has kind of like split that a little bit. Like some people are finding information on like Twitter, which can be interesting because sometimes it does share correct information and will, as like Noy was saying, brings people together, but it can also divide people because you're just seeing one side of the story and like what you want to hear. Personally, I have a friend that has pretty different political views than I do, and I guess it's definitely interesting to hear different perspectives, and it kind of matures your viewpoint and I guess what you believe in, because even though we're young, we've also been influenced by where we grow up, our parents' personal beliefs, our friends, etc. So it's good to talk to other people who have different opinions so you can help, I guess, decide for yourself what you want to believe in and get facts from different people. Like we were debating the gender wage gap, I think. And so, yeah.
Mahalo kule. Mema?
So for me, what I've always been taught that there's always a little light in the tunnel. So it's not always necessarily bad to have a little disconnection because it teaches you how to navigate better in the future. So like for an example, for as a hula dancer, one of my favorite practices is the hard days where like we get yelled at, and for some that's probably their least favorite, but I actually like those practices because it teaches you how to be a better hula dancer internally and outside. And so there's always a little light in the tunnel, and I feel like one of the main reasons that there's always this little disconnection or a little unity when it comes to social media is because of like false information, because posting posting something on the internet could be very sensitive to others, because the first thing you do when you see someone's post is you react. Either you agree with it or you don't agree with it. And so if you don't agree with it, you're obviously gonna have this full reaction about, oh, I don't agree with you, so I shouldn't look at the rest of your posts. And that prevents you from looking on the other side of that person's opinion. And so that kind of falls in between why there's a little disconnection. But yet again, if we can't agree with what is true, we can't navigate any of our problems together. And so again, social media is kind of like a drug. Like they mentioned this in the Social Dilemma film. It can affect us negatively, where it not only splits the connection between you and the perspectives of other people, but it splits the connection between yourself. So you don't know if you're thinking correctly, like, oh, should I be agreeing or should I not be agreeing? And so they stated that if we were, they stated like we were not to meant we I don't know how to explain it. It's like we were not meant to have like doses of judgment and signals, like signals such as thumbs ups, hearts, on social media and such. And so when it says we were not meant to have doses of judgment and signals coming towards us, it's basically saying that, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, there's always a little light in the tunnel because it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like mentally you can visualize it. And so, like, just a simple post can persuade the thoughts of many in a second. In like a second, in a minute, in like an hour, a whole day, a year, can add up a lot of disconnection.
Mahalo, Mema. Vincent, you had something to add?
This is on the discussion about. Can you still hear me or no? So there's a so like I think I'm very political, but like I still even on the internet still, but I still think personally the best way to on like debate like politics is just to like find someone and like just talk it to them. And I've had so much better experience just like having honest discussions than just like texting. Because like if you don't, because it's very hard for me, like I think for most people to like say your thoughts in like words, because it's all like conceptual where you have to think about it, you hear them, it's more like free flowing.
Maikai, mahalo. Again, you folks, I mean, for as long as you folks are and to have this conversation, this definitely really puts a lot into perspective, right? And it's not just, the question is definitely like, how does it divide? Like, um, how can it divide individuals? But I do like how Kina hit on, like, it's not only something that can just divide people, yeah. It can, and or what Mima was saying, just it's that disconnect within, but it can also, social media can also divide or unite families as well. So that has that effect on that too. So there's so many positives. And I think for a lot of us who went to Mana'o Mauna Kea, and I know we had this discussion, was, something that was beautiful about what Uncle Anikila said, right? Was that social media has negative and positive, right? And if we can all work on using social media to ho'olono, to continuously share positivity and to unite people, then there's that positive. And that really stems from you folks, the next generation. Like you folks are saying, you folks are the generation of social media, the generation where, like Sophia was saying, having a phone at third grade is common, right? They didn't have that when some of us were in third grade. I don't want to point out who that person or who those people were, so we're just going to keep that to ourselves. But you folks really are the voices that are like my generation, or us, for all of us, that we have to hear, yeah, about how you folks feel. And so just kind of moving on with that, wanting to hear from you folks as far as that goes. Like, what are your thoughts about social media in education? Like, for example, information is always being released through social media, right? And we are constantly learning about social media in school, safety, uses, etc. Because it is beginning to look this way. Do you think that social media will become mandatory for everyone? Like, how do you folks feel about that? Kule?
So right now my school we have like a lot of school Instagram pages. We have like 3, I don't know why, but um they do use it to release information, but it's kind of like a secondary source. So we have something called community where they give us like our news for the week. And then if you go on social media, they'll always have corresponding posts that'll say like food drive this week or jacket coat drive. I don't think they'll make it mandatory for students because it's still a personal choice, and some parents don't allow students to have social media. But I do know that education does like to use it to, I guess, share information and I guess give students like spirit. Some of these student council members have been taking over the school social media and sharing during quarantine because they know that students are getting a little bored. And then we'll have like online spirit weeks, so you can send them pictures or share like outfits that correspond to the spirit week. I know last year we had a fundraiser, and if we got to a certain amount of money on our fundraiser, I think it was the principal and some of the vice principals would stay overnight at school, and they live streamed the whole thing on Instagram for their whole sleepover night, and they did a couple funky things. But I don't think they're going to make it mandatory, but I think it does kind of help to be a secondary source of information and I guess boost student spirit and morale.
Mahalo Kule. So I think Vincent, are you gonna have to head out there, Vincent? Yeah.
Antila, you're muted.
Wait, can you hear me now? Oh, okay. Oh, was I talking? You guys couldn't hear Auntie? Oh, well, that happens. I was just saying that Vincent is gonna be leaving us, and we're still gonna continue, but we want to say mahalo, Vincent. We really do appreciate having you.
Thank you so much.
See you at the next one. All right, moving on. Sophia, go ahead.
Yeah, so totally agree with Ku'ule. My school, it's definitely used. Like, it was kind of almost forgotten during quarantine and while we weren't even in school. So I was the big part. But a lot of times, extra credit, you can get extra credit by, you know, posting a picture and then having a specific tag. And also our leadership program, that's where they, you know, post every single day and to help motivate other kids who go to our school. But something that the thing that makes me feel like social media is never going to be mandatory for school is that at my school, we kind of have a low tolerance for phones in general. So enforcing social media is not where we're going. And also on our Chromebooks all that stuff is blocked. So it'd be kind of weird to say, you know, you can only find information on social media and then not let it be available.
Mahalo, I see that too. Yeah, I see a lot of the things that are for me, and you know, on our end, to see, you know, as a parent with the kids at home, I kind of appreciate that they block all that, but I do get your confusion, Sophia. Like they block it, but they ask you folks to do the work on there. So I understand. I see what you're saying. Chloe, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I agree with you guys with like everything you said, and like that we're probably not gonna be required to have social media. And then just to add another reason why not, it's because like a lot of students don't even have internet access or like the technology to be able to get onto social media, so it would be pretty inequitable to require it for all students. And then also another part of the question was about learning about social media in schools. So for that part, like it is probably good to require that for everybody, kind of like well, there's sex education, which is required up to like at a certain grade level, and then until you like, you know, and kind of like that, like even if you don't have it, like you should still know how to be safe on it and know what to do and what not to do and all of that stuff, and how to be kind to people on the internet. So I think that is a good requirement to have in terms of like education on social media and stuff.
Mahalo, Noelani.
Agreeing with what Chloe and Sophia said, it would it's good to like learn about social media and what we should and shouldn't be doing on it. And then, but it wouldn't make sense for it to be mandatory if they don't provide us with, if we don't have the resources to use it. But the other thing is, like, I know with clubs and like after school activities, like for me, like I do a few different clubs with school and then I have dance. With those things, social media is used, it's mostly social media. Sure, they email us, but a lot of the details are more in social media, like on their social media and stuff, which is a little frustrating for someone who doesn't have social media. But I know for me personally, my friends like know I don't have it, and so they'll usually like tell me what's like if something's happening. But then I don't, but at the same time, it doesn't, they sometimes forget, so I don't always get informed. And I think with specific things, social media is becoming sort of mandatory. Like, but people don't, I feel like it's not realized that not everybody has the ability to have social media, whether it be because our parents restrict it or we just don't feel comfortable having it, or we don't necessarily have a phone or computer or internet at home. So it's a lot to expect for everyone to have just social media, because just having a phone in general is difficult for a lot of families out there. So agreeing with like what Sophia said, it would be weird for them. It's weird that a lot of clubs and after school activities require us to have social media when not everyone can have it.
Mahalo for your folks, Manao. And just to kind of stay on education and looking at that, education, social media can also play a huge role as far as how it affects culture and how culture is misrepresented by stereotypes in front of large audiences, because a lot of people are using social media, right, to educate themselves about culture. So how do you think social media affects the way you view a culture or traditions, or how do you think your culture is represented or misrepresented in the media, if you're looking at it from personal or educational perspective? What do you think? Go ahead, Mima.
So for social media spreads more widely in a more bigger way rather than talking it personally to someone. Because if you're talking it personally to someone, it only gets shared with the group of people you know. However, social media is like everyone in the world. And so if you, again, a simple post can be very sensitive to others because you again have to pause before you post something. Because if I were to post something about my Japanese culture or the Hawaiian culture, and it's something that's offensive to the people of that culture, but I didn't know, then it'll affect them, and then they'll start to see, oh, right, I have to like, I don't know, but like again going back for again like for Hawaii, there's a lot of tourists, and so there's a lot of Instagram accounts for like tourist hotels who post pictures of luau's that they're gonna have, the food they're gonna serve, what the rooms look like. And so for a Kanaka Hawaii, that's kind of offensive because you're kind of picturing Hawaii in a different way or perspective that like for someone who's never been to Hawaii, then that's the first thing they'll think what Hawaii looks like. It'll look like, you know, flower lays and but Hawaii's much more once you get out of that little area and you start going out to different islands, to the different mokupunis, to the different heiaus. And so for me personally, with experience, the first time I went to Hawaii, I was like any like all those other tourists who went to the Iolani Palace, who went to the luau, who went to the beach. And that's when I got introduced to hula. And so after dancing hula for a couple of years, I went back to Hawaii with my family. And again, we stayed at a hotel, but there was this, and like in the lobby, there's a little workshop where you can do hula dancing with one of the workers at the hotel. And so my mom was like, "Oh, maybe you should go dance with them." I was like, "No, I'm okay." And so I just didn't want to dance with them for some reason because it just, it's that feeling of you don't want to like, I don't know how to explain it, but you just don't want to misrepresent the culture that sticks dear to your heart. Because when you're doing that, you kind of have like this guilt situation. Like if I were to, I would have been gladly to go up to them and say, "Hey, no, we have to do," but I was 9 years old, so I couldn't do that. And but hopefully when I'm older, I have more of an opportunity to share with people around the world, whether it means traveling, quarantine, doing talk stories like this, where I can share more like the truth, not necessarily false information, but the reason why. There's always intention of why I'm doing this. And so when there's intention, there's always a good result. And when there's a good result, there's always a good future. And so that's what I hope for the next generation, especially when it comes to cultural appropriation, especially in social media. And so I hope that this, not necessarily legacy, but I hope this reminder in my head continues with me when I grow up. Because when I grow up, I have more opportunities to do more things because I'm older. So right now, since I'm a little bit younger, I have more time to learn more information so that when I get older, it can grow and then I can pass it on to like Kina and then the next generation.
Mahalo. I'm going to go over to Kule.
Yeah, that was I agree with a lot of what you said, Mayma. There is definitely a lot of misrepresentation, and it hurts to see your culture kind of portrayed that way because sometimes it can feel like belittling. Um, but also, I feel like social media has kind of become, there's like two sides of the coin. It has become like a platform where people can come together and share like their native pride or their poly pride or like Asian, for people who I guess in America we're kind of a melting pot of cultures. Depending on where you grow up, though, you might not have people that are your same ethnicity, and when you get online, sometimes you can find people, and it might, if you are like maybe a third or fourth generation immigrant, um, it can help you kind of connect back to your culture. And also, when people do post things that I guess try to for like push a certain stereotype that's not necessarily true, cancel culture does often come in and inform people, maybe not in the best way, that they're wrong, and try. A lot of people do try and be upstanding, and I know some really good creators that come in and will share other content and will review the video and say, hey, this is why this is wrong, or this is why this might be offensive. Like, guys, this is not like the hula. There's like, and then they'll show like pictures of like kahiko and like different things like that. And it's definitely good to have, I guess, like people able to come in and show different representation of cultures that have been suppressed, especially if I guess the population might be smaller. If you have a platform and you want to try and break stereotypes, try and do that and like use your platform to educate people and break stereotypes, because it does hurt people and it does hurt cultures. But yeah, thank you for having me a part of this discussion. I sadly I have to head out soon now, I guess. But thank you for letting me be a part of this. It was good to see you guys all. Thank you,
Well,
Auntie
mahalo. Mahalo, Kule. Okay, I'll see you later. I love what she's saying. Use your platform. Use your platform. Okay. All right, go ahead. Noilani.
So with social, like I know I don't have social media, so but what I know is that like our culture, like Hawaiian culture, is very like a lot of people don't know necessarily, like if they don't take the time to immerse themselves in it, then they don't really know much about it. And I know with like Mauna Kea, like and everything that was happening with TMT, I I was getting into like a lot of arguments with people about it because a lot of people were super misinformed about the reason behind it and why this was happening and why Native Hawaiians were so against like putting a giant telescope on Mauna Kea. And it just really frustrated me that people were so misinformed. So I I tried my best to like take the time and like teach people like why it was wrong, why like what my opinions were, but not necessarily like forcing my opinions on them because every person has the right to their own opinions. But I just, because they were very misinformed about what was happening and why it was happening. So, and I know that like even like just being like a native Hawaiian who goes to school every day, the population of like Pacific Islanders in like our school is like less than 1%. And it's really, really weird because but at the same time it makes me like proud because I'm like, well, I'm a part of that less than 1%. But it's a little sad to see that culture is very like misrepresented in like not just school because of what they teach us in the textbooks, but also in throughout social media where people have the ability to teach others about their own culture. But I think now is a good people are able to inform people and just teach people about like their opinions and what might be wrong. And I think that as much as it's misrepresented, I feel like now people are better understanding what's happening and why it's happening. So yeah.
Mikai. And that's kind of just because you're bringing that up and listening to the platform, going off of what Kule said earlier, using your platforms. And I feel, for social media is a huge platform, right? We've had this conversation multiple times, right? It's definitely a huge platform. And how do you folks like, do you think that social media and having this platform does, and sorry Chloe, I know you had your hand up too, but just to kind of, maybe you can start this conversation, but do you think that social media has it positively or negatively like influenced different movements? For example, TMT, right? And Mauna Kea, a lot of us who are living up here, we are not in Hawaii, right? So we have to use different forms and different means of having those conversations. But what about like our Black Lives Matter and the pandemic and cancel impact? There's so many different, different um movements that are out there. How do you folks feel like, can social media, does it have a positive or negative influence on these different movements and these different platforms? And I'll go to Chloe.
I think that it does definitely have a positive impact on all of these things, because like before social media or even the internet existed, like there was only these few like high standing people, often like that were white, that everybody had to listen to and agree with. And now that social media exists, there's all these different people saying different things, and that's how these movements are able to get started, because there's people that who say things and now their opinions are actually able to be heard. So yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome. Sophia?
I agree with Chloe. There's definitely, you can have a different opinion and perspective of social media and how it can benefit you or not. But I feel like that is the beauty of social media. You're able to share your opinion and start a conversation. Like Vincent said, I think you really get a better understanding and view of others. So you can consider others' thinking and open up to different decisions. But obviously, on the other side of that, it can easily start arguments and big like feelings, and you either have to take that chance or not get the benefit of learning more and learning from other people.
Mahalo. Yes. And Chloe, did you have anything to add? Is your hand up?
No,
Oh no.
sorry. Put my hand down.
No, no worries. Okay, but love the conversation. Mahalo, and you folks are right. Like again, you guys are the next generation. Your voices need to be heard when it comes to a lot of different a lot of different topics, right? And so social media is kind of one of the big ones, especially with how it's affected all of you folks or just everybody. Yeah, young, old, everybody. How it's affected us through this pandemic, and so mahalo for sharing all of that. And one of the big things, like you guys pointed out, this is your platform. This is, use your platforms for good and be able to get the manao out like you folks are doing today. And so one of the questions, and we're slowly running out, so I'm just trying to move us around. The last question I wanted to touch base is just because this is a big issue, right? This is a big issue that we see amongst our youth today, and the adults, especially during this pandemic, is at what point does dependency on social media and technology become too much, right? when is it too much, you know? And so what is your stance on like addiction to social media? Like how do you folks feel that social media plays like like an addiction? You know, I think one of you folks already brought up drugs, but how does it play, and what is that effect that you folks are seeing like amongst yourselves and your friends? Like it not just Facebook and but even YouTube and Twitter and all of that. Mima? Mima, you can go first.
So for me, a phone is like a main source of where you get your social media. Um, like using a phone as an example, a phone is like a digital pacifier. You know, like when you're younger, the babies cry for the pacifier because they want it, they have the urge to have it because they feel like their life revolves around it. So for any person in any age group, social media is like a digital pacifier. You think your life revolves around it. And so going back, I heard that during 2011 to 2013, for teenage girls, an increase of teenage girls had depression, suicidal thoughts and negative actions because of social media. And so for teenage girls, coming from me personally, there's a lot of times there's a stage in your life where, you're more concerned about your body image, comparing yourself to others. And so I feel like it seems as if the next generation is not really having this sense of nature around them, because for parents, it was once stated that social media wasn't to, or not just social media, but like any app in general, it wasn't meant to nurture their kids. It was like meant to distract them to like stay calm or something like that. But again, a whole generation is more anxious and fragile now, and the risks of being non-active as much as past generations is decreasing, because it's almost as if their life revolves around needing to go on your phone and trying to fit in. And I feel like in order to improve this act, we need to start reminding kids, and some of them are already doing this in education, but to remind them that there's an outside world where there's way more than just a screen in your hands and posts.
Mahalo. Go ahead, Noelani.
Okay. So, adding on to what Mama said about like the whole like body image thing, when people go on social media, you'll notice that like the people who have more followers or who tend to be more popular are always the people who seem to be in the public eye more attractive, as well as, well, just like attractive in general. And I feel like that that affects people's confidence a lot when they're just like a young kid growing up in like this world of social media, because there's this standard of what beauty is, but at the same time there are several different standards for each typical person. But whoever what you believe is like what you want to look like, it the fact, because you're not going to look exactly like them. So this idea that you want to look like someone you're not, or this idea that you want to be someone that you aren't, is very toxic for yourself. And that's probably why it has been an increase that like with depression and suicide and anxiety that is related to social media, because there's this idea that there are these perfect people in the world who have perfect bodies and look beautiful or handsome or amazing, and like with their own, whoever they are. But it makes a lot of people very unconfident with themselves and feel unsatisfied with who they are as people. And I feel like everyone has fallen victim to this idea that we aren't perfect, but we're just handed these people on social media that seem to be perfect. When like reality is everyone has their own issues and everyone has their own problems, but just looking at like different pictures on Instagram, you're not like people don't want to post the bad stuff. People usually just post what's good and what's going on and things that won't make them happy. So it's more common to see the rougher side of things in influencers' lives. But I feel like it's very healthy for influencers to show their vulnerability because it just makes them more human. Not just more human, but it helps people like kids. Like I know I relate to people that like I like to watch people that I can relate to, and it makes me feel more comfortable with my own body and my own who I am as a person, my personality, what I do. But this idea of social media, it at some point it becomes too much. At the point where like we're already at a point where like it's become a very toxic environment for some people, and to for specific things um it's very important to be satisfied with who you are and not to try and become someone you aren't, and not to look up at like the sky and think about who like just try to be someone you aren't, because it's very important to be who you are rather than, because it's just a toxic mindset to try and become one of these influencers you see on Instagram who are so beautiful and like seem to be amazing and living the perfect life. So
Mahalo Noi. I love your message about just be who you are. Chloe, your turn.
I think for me, it all depends on like what you're doing and whether or not like you're using social media as a distraction from doing something else. So like, well, Noelani said like it is a source for like a lot of people to be really down about themselves and stuff. Um, and I think for that, just like being aware of what you're doing at all times on social media, and yeah, like if you're using it as the only source for your self-esteem, then redirect where your self-esteem comes from and redirect your use of social media as well. And like also, well, going more to like dependency on social media and technology, I think for us, we, I think all of us, except yeah, all of us, the student panelists, we haven't existed. We've literally haven't existed in a world without social media. So, like the way we see social media working, like amongst ourselves and other people, might be different. Like for me at least, social media isn't like a, it's just like an object that exists almost. It's just always been there. And so personally, I think like we as humans are kind of at this point dependent on social media. uh, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't really know, but just yeah, look at what you're doing and whether it's being beneficial to you, like how social media was intended, or if it's hurting you and your self-esteem.
Mahalo, gang. That was a beautiful way to kind of sum this whole conversation, this discussion up. I really like I said, and multiple times, you folks truly are the next generation. And listening to you folks, like you folks have even made me realize that I have made the social media something that's a dependency on my, students in our halal, right? A lot of you have gone to Facebook because that's our platform of communication, right? That's where we communicate, and there are other ways that we could do communication. So for like for what Noilani was saying, like the for dance and all of that, for school, thank you for opening my mind. There are other platforms that we can use. We can actually get off of social media and use a different platform for hula, and figure out a way so that you folks, we're not being a part of that social media of, like, we're gonna do something different. So mahalo for helping me realize that. I hope a lot of other adults who are watching also have kind of tilted their head and be like, you always said that's what we talk about, right? When you tilt your head, you gotta think about it. So mahalo nui loa for you folks. Manao again. And we've had some other students that have gone off, and we have a few that are not here today, who are the core people of the Kamaliʻi Talk Story. And it was beautiful to have the last one of this year of 2020 being able to showcase all of them and bringing them into a room to have a discussion about social media, because that's where Nakamali'i Talk Story is on, right? We are on social media, and the mana'o behind having Nakamali'i Talk Story like this is exactly what they're saying, and what Chloe closed out with. Use it for what is beneficial to you. And these discussions with these young people, and being able to give them a larger platform to reach people for positivity, is definitely a way that Kalo is very proud to support Nakamali'i Talk Story, and to support these young individuals who have volunteered their time through this pandemic, throughout school, and who have made a commitment to 2021 for Nakamali'i Talk Story, to continue this conversation. So we hope that you continue to join us. So we want to mahalo all of you folks who have supported the Kamaliʻi Talk Story since June. We've been at this since June. One of those months, guys. Maybe May. We've been at this, and they have really built a wonderful following with their positive feedback and their voices of encouragement. And we, on behalf of Kalo, we want to mahalo all of you folks for your aloha and your ha'a for being a part of this, and really guiding and being a part of the leaders that we need to see happen. So mahalo nui loa to all the youth that have joined the Kamaliʻi Talk Story this year. Mahalo nui loa again to our core youth who have been truly guiding. Again, everything I said today was guided by these people you see on the screen, and so they give us the opportunity to just be a part of their conversations, which we mahalo. So we really hope that today's talk story session has helped, not just the youth but the adults as well, to understand and hopefully answer some of the questions that you have had for yourself, or maybe even for your kamali'i that's at home. I'm sure you're in the same, a lot of us are in the same boat together, where we are enjoying this distant learning at home. We want to give a shout out to all of those kumu, all the teachers who are continuously supporting these students, because these students come from that teaching. And to be able to have conversations and again create this platform with them has truly been a blessing on behalf of Kalo. And so like we said before, and like they have said multiple times, we hope to use this platform as a safe place for all youth to come together and talk about the issues that the students are key components of today's society, and are faced with as we move into the future. And we want to invite, if you're listening, for the youth, and please, for teachers, share this among your students, and reach out to us. These young individuals are hoping to have more youth join the Kamaliʻi Talk Story. We want to hear different perspectives. We want to have those conversations, and we want to give the platform that our students need, because their voices need to be heard. We will push this until we're going to remind everybody every single day, they are the next generation, and they need our kako, they need our support. And please share this, get the information. When you join the Kamaliʻi Talk Story, no subject is off limits. Bring it to the table. They want to know. We want to know. Adults want to hear your voices. So We hope to continue these sessions next year. 2021 is going to look a little different. Your core Na Kamaliʻi Talk Story have already planned out the year. You will be seeing them once a month. They will be setting up one discussion a month, and they hope to have so much more to offer next year. So please join us. Invite your peers, your friends, your family, everybody to come and support Na Kamaliʻi Talk Story. And for more information on ways to be involved, or just wanting to have conversations and ways to get your youth involved, or you want to invite Na Kamaliʻi Talk Story to come and talk story at your school, at your organization, at your events, please email info@kalohcc.org, or simply visit our website www.kalohcc.org. Again, mahalo nui loa to all of you. Mahalo Na Kamaliʻi Talk Story for giving us such an important 2020, a way to hear your voices and to have those hard conversations. We are truly blessed as Kalo to be just a small part of your folks' conversations and discussions. So again, mahalo nui loa to all of you folks. Mahalo to all of you folks who are out there watching and supporting. And again, for more information, www.kalohcc.org. Aloha, mahalo, ahuiho.